तेरा नाम तो पता है, तेरा काम नहीं पता है।
Hi Imran.
Hi.
Of course, with Bard of Blood, this is perhaps your first full-fledged, web appearance. What are the factors that you considered initially, before you decided to say yes to this project?
Like I would choose a film, the material. It was very important to have a great story, and see who's backing it, to see how that would translate on screen. I have become kind of a Netflix fanboy. 3 years back, I started consuming a lot of shows, and it's my go-to app. So when it's one of the books, Bilal's book, when I launched it in Mumbai, when it was going to be adapted into a Netflix show, and when I was approached, it was a no-brainer because I'd already read the book. I knew the material, and then I saw how it was adapted into the episodes, and yeah, that was a complete.
How much time do you get to consume web content when you're working, and which was the last show that you binge watched?
I actually, when I'm shooting, I get back home and I have to consume probably an episode or two of my favorite show. So yeah, that's become like one of those things. I'm consuming a lot of stuff on Netflix per se. But yeah, my last show was Friends from College. It's a comedy show on Netflix. Before that, I'd seen You. So yeah, multiple shows, a lot of Netflix original films, some good stuff. Yeah.
All right. So, lately there's been a huge influx of content on the web scene in India.
Yeah.
The last count was there were almost 30 platforms, which provide web entertainment in India. Of course, Netflix is perhaps the market leader across the world. And the common criticism that web shows in India face is that, because they don't have to go through the censorship norm, which a theatrical does, they rely heavily on either abusive language or nudity. Sometimes it's not even needed. Were you, very clear about that, that you don't want to engage in content which just for the sake of it is perhaps selling it on that kind of...
No, but I've never seen it that way. I don't think it's about that. It's not about trying to jump that whole censorship thing. I think eventually for me, a show is engaging purely in the material and the way it's made. So that's not something as a viewer, I can speak for myself. I'm not drawn to something like that just because it doesn't have that kind of censorship. I think that's not what I see in a show when I get in. So yeah.
You've been shooting here in Rajasthan for the last few weeks, and I believe it's like a non-stop schedule. We're just shooting sort of every day.
It feels like a year.
Yeah, all right. So, what kind of special prep went into your character? Did you have to go through a special diction of, the kind of language that you speak in the film?
Not for me so much. There's this word in Balochistan where the Balochis are speaking that they have a certain lingo. They have trained more for that with a dialect coach. For me, it's Hindi and English. For the training, of course, obviously being physically fit because every episode has its own, like there's an action set piece and it's very elaborate through and through the show. And for me it's just learning the lines and turning up on set and just kind of letting the character evolve. And because I'd read the book back then I read the episodes, I kind of knew how to play Kabir Anand. But then it gets clearer when you're on the film set and you're in discussions with the writers, with the director, and the character evolves as you go. So but the physicality was something that was very important because there's a lot of action in the show, and I had to be up for it. I mean, our first schedule was in Ladakh with close to very little oxygen, and we had to do big action set pieces there. So that was testing but fun.
The espionage zone in this genre of films, it's not something we've not seen before. Hollywood has done it. In fact, Indian cinema has also covered that bit. And a lot of them even made on a large scale with a lot of action sequences put in. Do you think it's harder to surprise the audience, considering they've really seen a lot of it in the past?
It depends on how you present the material. I think what we have, first of all, is a great story. It's very fresh, it's very unique. I don't think any espionage show or film is placed in this world like you have The Bard of Blood. So in that way, there's a certain novelty. And just the characters, the thrills, the suspense, everything is very unique. So, I mean, on the external, it might seem like, yes, there's so much of stuff. But, I mean, on the flip side, there have not been too many spy films in India. So, but yeah, there probably are few shows. But I think that this will surprise people. It's got a very different tonality. It's got a very different story. So definitely surprise people.
Why dig up old graves, Kabir?
To bury my past once and for all.